Hi, Lenka. Fantastic for you to join me from the Czech Republic. I wondered if you'd briefly like to introduce yourself first.
Hello, Paul. Thank you for inviting me to your Zoom session. I'm Lenka Laubrová, Žirovnická. I am a CEO of the Association for Freestanding Birth Centers and alongside midwifery units from the Czech Republic, meaning that I'm a director of something that we actually do not have here in Czechia. And I would love to have a talk with you about how the things are going within the birthing um, change, and
That's great.
let's talk.
And what's exciting for me to hear somebody mention birth centers, I even picture birth couches instead of beds. I picture freedom and space and gravity and physiology and autonomy. And then when the tragedy, I go into a hospital full of kind people, sometimes there's a natural kind of coercion. Oh, get on the bed and get in the system. So, are you actually having some birth centers, or is it more of a wish? Because I've seen these birth couches you have, and they're all across your country, aren't they?
Yeah, it started quite a revolution in here. And I'm very glad for the foundation and endowment fund that Lilia Kousnoudinová has. It's Propolis 33, and they put much effort and loads of money into introducing birth couches as a new furniture for hospitals. But as for your question, whether we have or don't have birth centers, I would definitely say that we don't have birth centers as they are stated within the European standards for midwifery units, as we don't have the midwifery autonomy, meaning that we cannot have midwifery units per se.
So, if you don't have autonomy, is it that midwives have to work under a doctor?
Yeah, legally it is so, and also hierarchic structure of the hospital culture is, that's so ingrained within
Yeah.
the working culture that
But I
it's
understand you had a legal case, and I can say I understand you had a case. I'm not sure I understand the outcome. I'm not sure anybody understands the outcome. So, working in hospital or out of hospital, how is it? What are the possibilities, and what is the court case about?
we had several court cases as of recently. The one that stirred up some uncertainties, maybe even about how we are with the home birthing situation now in the Czech Republic, was the one from the last year when the Constitutional Court declared care with the home birth not to be a health care as such. So that's quite funny, that
Is that so they don't have to
along,
regulate it
yeah,
or be
it's not a
responsible for it, maybe?
That's what they said. But alongside this, they also mentioned several pretty positive points towards the state, that the state has to sort of make its homework and start doing things right. So it's quasi good, quasi bad outcome, and we will see what the reality check with this will be. And the other court ruling that might be of concern for the global community is the one that would suggest implicitly opening the door for the unconsented care. And that's where I'm quite, but pretty cautious about how to interpret or how this will be interpreted in case some legal action will be taken to court, or some, obstetric violence thing will be taken to court.
So, if you
Yeah.
say unconsented care, is it that it's assumed the woman consents by going into hospital to anything and everything the hospital does, or something else?
Uh, a better question for the League of Human Rights. So I might say only, as a lay activist, the notion for me, the outcome from the Constitutional Court ruling is that at some point, uh, pregnant woman has to bear the intervention because of the baby. And that's
Is that the baby's rights override the mother's rights?
that's what it opens the door to. And we will see what future will bring, because we need a case to whether
Yeah.
it upholds or not. But it's concerning when I'm looking around the world, when women rights are going down the drain, and things we were really sure that are not going to change are changing, as with the
How are
rights
things
for.
in your neighboring countries like Slovakia and particularly Austria? There was that case in Vienna. So does that impact, or what do you make of these cases?
Yeah, I'm making of these cases that the situation is changing rapidly, and that we should bear in mind that things are not for sure and are not granted,
Yeah.
and we shall not stop our endeavors. And
And could and should life be certain? I know the law wants legal certainty. So when they've made a bad decision, they will stick with it. If they've wrongfully convicted somebody, they stay with it. They don't want to overturn a conviction because they want legal certainty. But I experience from life and every birth, it's completely unpredictable. It's uncertain. And if I can embrace that and go with the flow, respect choices, respect individuals. Now, if a mother doesn't have so much rights as the baby and she's smoking or drinking, we've got to wonder how far that door is opening of, penalizing, treating the mother badly, saying you cannot do something in your pregnancy because it can harm the baby. Because my understanding is generally with childbirth, the baby can acquire rights just before birth in European countries. In the UK, the child has no rights until after birth. But I wonder
yeah.
how far back, during the pregnancy, could a mother be criticized, or could the state take control of her pregnancy even?
Yeah, that's the pivotal question. What do we, how do we perceive women rights in the context of human rights, in the context of fetus versus baby rights? And what I feel is that once we open these dangerous doors towards the right of fetuses, we are opening the dangerous doors towards the pro-natalists and anti-abortionists. That's unfortunately the truth. It goes hand in hand. That I don't know how to, you know,
Can you
cut
clarify
these into two separate.
that for me, there's only a baby? I learnt the word in medical terminology, fetus. I went to say it to a woman once and I realized, of course, she thinks of her baby as a baby, not a fetus. So I've never used the word fetus. But what's the distinction for you? When would you talk about a fetus and a baby being different?
I would frame it as a legal term when we are trying to, really establish the turf on which we are talking rights of each, let's say, service user. Yeah. And it's pretty dangerous area. And with your Anglo-Saxon reading of things, that whatever woman wishes, whatever she decides, even though it might end up with death of her child or her death, it's her right. It's a choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we have not attained yet. We are not there. And that's what I really look up to as a version of a reality I would love to be in, but we're not.
So you've got the
We have
state
that
will interfere.
we have that murky area where we're getting questions, pretty specific questions from the service providers. And where do the rights of women end and where do they start? Is it with the baby on the perineum? Is it with the baby with its ears out of vagina? Where does it start? Where is the borderline? Because they are frankly, the defensive medicine they practice is because of the uncertainty and because of the lack of psychological safety, I would say. Yeah, because they feel so unsafe. I mean, the service providers.
Yes. So
And I
defensive
don't know what to,
medicine is not what's best for mother and baby, it's what's best for the provider.
yeah. And I don't know what to do about it, really. As with the activism we are trying to pursue, you inevitably one day touch somebody's sore thumb and you step on it. And you are either activistic or pro service providers. You cannot somehow sew together these two narratives.
There's
And
a
I would love to.
There is a word in mediation called omnipartial on all sides. So if we've got parents fighting over kids, we can say to the mother, I'm on your side, but I'll also be on his side. And you say the same to him. And they actually appreciate and understand we are on all sides. So then if we're working with maternity, and I've got hopefully an empathetic nature, and I'll say to the provider, what do you want to do? And they're like, well, I want to let the labour progress naturally or allow spontaneous onset of labour. But I'm under pressure from my boss. I'm under pressure from the system. I'm under pressure from the law, some type, regulatory, employment, criminal, civil law. So I'm going to do something which isn't clinically the best thing, but it helps protect the provider. So if I talk to them empathetically and say, I understand that. Now, what about the consumer's choices? They've said they do want something, they do not want something else. And we need to respect that. In general, people do what they do because they can, and they won't if they can't. So if there's the implied, possibly even threat of court action against providers, and that needs to become actions. So if there's assault, battery, trespass of the person, touching a woman, forcing a labour, doing crestular, the fundal pressure to push a baby out, and the woman is saying, no, no, stop, don't do that. It's very clearly no consent. But nobody seems to take legal actions. I'm wondering, would it help if people took legal actions, and what would it take for somebody to actually take an action? Because that would probably help re-educate the system in favor of the consumer.
Yes and no. Within the reality of the Czech Republic, there's been a strong consumers group based on writing complaints and a real attempt to debrief after the bad, traumatizing birthing experiences. But the backlash and the push from the system and from the service providers was and still is unbelievably hard to overcome. So yes and no, as the tradition within the educational system here, I might say even, is that we are not able to work with mistakes. Yeah, we're just not being taught to work with mistakes throughout the educational era
What
since
does that mean?
preschool.
Aha.
Meaning that if a
In maternity
mistake
care.
with the maternity care, and we are not taught how to work with mistakes in our lives and with conflict in our lives. And when conflict or mistakes occur, we immediately, with our amygdalas, start to fight. Yeah, or that's the regular answer to that. They feel endangered. The service providers, they are just not able to respond empathetically, as they are not in the
Is that from fear?
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely
And yet,
sign that because of the fear.
I had the pleasure of being in your country and also at some universities where I was really encouraged that you're quite amazing young, and not just the young people, all sorts of midwives, qualified community hospital ones, and the students were questioning and had an energy and an appetite that I don't see in other countries. So I really compliment Czech Republic having a massive, amazing appetite to improve, to make things better, to get things the best it can be for themselves, for their communities, for their own families. So I want to capitalize on that energy, and it's what actions need to take place. Is it legal? Is it clinical? Is it both? Is it society? Is it just having these debates more frequently and having workshops? I mean, you've had this great festival recently on birth.
Yeah, that was a wonderful occasion. And I hope that next year it will be even wider and more hospitals will take part in that, as this is the thing that opens the door, that joins together the service users together with the service providers.
As you
And
said that, I got an inspired idea. What about a road show? Because everything's in Prague, that's fantastic. But maybe what happens in Prague needs to be taken out to other big cities, like a road show.
you would be maybe surprised that the best part, anecdotally, for the obstetric care and midwifery care is Southern Moravia. It's not Prague. Prague hospitals or Prague obstetric care, um, apart from one faculty hospital, I would say, is considered to be a bastion of conservative care. Yeah. So
So in
it's
London,
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's getting better. The change is happening, definitely, but it's still not a systemic change. It's about individual people trying to do their individual stuff with individual women, and that's wonderful. But what we definitely need is also well, from the Ministry of Health, from, we need conceptual documents, strategic documents, pushing forward the change.
where do you look? Do you look at the UK, maybe New Zealand, Australia, Aotearoa,
We used to look
Europe?
at you. We used to look at UK as an example of evidence-based practice, but what I feel and understand from development from the United Kingdom is that with 2011 birthplace study, you had the same amount, the same percentage of cesarean sections as we have now. And you had a great opportunity to reestablish and transform the system according to the outcomes of this wonderful and really vast and huge evidence that was done throughout this birthplace study. But it never got into practice, and that's why United Kingdom is now where it is, maybe.
I think it's a leadership issue mostly in the United Kingdom. You have some individuals you said that are very pioneering, doing great things. And in the South, you mentioned that's more liberal, moving ahead. And you have the doctor, I think he's been an obstetrician for maybe 20 years, Andre, who's also a politician. So does it come down to individuals? What would it take for Prague to change and follow in those footsteps?
Mothers claiming their better care, and I wish women would want more and expect more. And actually, I had an amazing experience with the editor of Forbes, the Czech version of Forbes, because she issued a wonderful article about our decreasing demographic factors, like we have less and less birth every year.
Yeah.
And I had a chat with her and asked her, yeah, wonderful, you've raised several aspects of why is it declining. Have you ever considered that the birth experience is also a part of the story? And she asked, what do you mean? What do you really? It was like real. She was not understanding the term experience, like being satisfied with birth. What are you going to be satisfied with? Is it even possible to be satisfied with birth? And I tried to talk about, the generational aspect of the bad birthing experience being taken by the next generation as a fact, and it's became a new normal. So these women, they don't expect the care that we are talking about, the
Yeah.
respectful, they are going there to survive, and that's it.
And
That's the baseline.
do they just have one baby instead of a second or third because of the previous trauma?
Yeah, that's what these soft studies suggest. But everything, it's not about soft studies. They want the hard data. But we also need to dive into the qualitative studies about why women don't have third or second nowadays a baby, and how does their satisfaction or dissatisfaction with the birth uh, come into play when it goes to the decision whether or not to have another baby. What do you suggest?
I think action is the thing that changes. And the action is, in my view, legal action. Somebody in a restaurant gets cut or assaulted in some ways, the police come. When it happens in a hospital, it's a protected system. And women need to fill in a form, go to court, whether they are a litigant in person and they just fund the case themselves, perhaps without a lawyer. It could be a simple administrative fee, 50 to 100 euros. And they say, the hospital staff did X, Y, Z. I didn't want it. I said no, and they did it. And if they win a civil case, it could also be criminal cases. This is what changed things in the UK, in the US. It's not perfect, it's not better there, it's just different in each country. In New Zealand, the women were very autonomous, saying what they did want and what they didn't want, and they got the law changed. So wherever it said that a woman can see the doctor, they just put or midwife. So that gave a lot of choice to the women in childbirth to go to their midwives, and it gave some autonomy to the midwives. That's got less over the last 30 years. I know the bells are going to chime a bit. I might have to edit that out. I don't know how loud it is. So it's always action, I think. And the reverse is true when we have actions taken against us clinicians or families. Is that an opportunity for us to get better maternity care? So, like the medical negligence, the manslaughter, and even in Brazil, the murder case for congenital abnormality of a baby. They've blamed the doctor and midwife, sentenced the doctor to 14 years, the midwife to 11 years. In Vienna, the midwife got a suspended sentence for manslaughter. In Berlin, the midwife got 6.5 years for manslaughter. And this is happening in many countries. So it seems a matter of time. In every country, there are these cases. Can we use them as opportunities? Can we also take actions? What I often say is to challenge the challenger.
I hear you, and I would wish that we were better in strategic cases here. And I don't know whether you heard of Stella Valentová case. It's
Yes.
yeah, it's from the film Unseen, Neviditelná, and the result. It's because of what Fleur van Leeuwen, professor from the human rights studies from Istanbul I work with. She says that there are epistemic blind spots within the judicial system. And that's what I feel, that when you go to court claiming that something was wrong with the care
Yeah.
in inverted commas, it's you presume that they can understand your experience. But when on the other side of the table is a white old male not knowing anything about pregnancy, not knowing anything about birthing.
Mm.
And the expert witness is again an old conservative obstetrician saying that everything was pink and shiny. We are not getting forward. We are not moving forward, as you suggested. So, what shall be done to make these old structures aware of, I would even say, of the concept of human rights and the informed consent? It's just
You're right.
unbelievable.
The judiciary often look up to doctors. They have a different education. They think the doctor's education is kind of magical or mythical. They're studying on dead bodies, they're studying pathology, they're using equipment, microscopes, technology that the lawyers never look at. So if a doctor says everything was fine, they think everything was fine. What we need is high quality and quantity of expert medical witnesses for the families and for the providers who are being challenged to say, that's not the case, here's our evidence. And just as we look at clinical evidence, the same with courts, it's legal evidence that wins the situation, should win a case if there's opportunity. So one case I mentioned, the one in Berlin, took 2 years. The case in Vienna took half a day. So both of them were manslaughter cases. How can you have a case in half a day and no defense witnesses really allowed? So that's obviously not a proper case. And having a case drag over 2 years is incredible. That itself is a inhumane, degrading punishment, if treatment. So yeah, I've just lost my thread. Feel free to bring me back on target.
No, it's just I was asking what to do to disentangle this vicious circle of us trying to use a due process of law as a as reclaiming the power as a service user,
I,
when on the other side of the system there are these obstacles and this blindness.
I do have this general idea, and it might be a naive one, that we just take the cases and we can fail because of all the reasons you've given in our own national domestic courts. Then we're allowed to go to the European Court of Human Rights. And I think we need 10, 50, 100 cases going there, not just from your country, but from all countries, saying the same thing. Choices in childbirth is what we need. What we don't need is obstetric violence and coercion and medicine and surgery against people's wills, having unintended consequences, harming mothers and babies. Even in the UK, at one hospital, we see 2,000 preventable deaths of babies. So I see the more actions we take, especially it's okay to lose a case, then you can go to the higher court. And even if you never go to the higher court, we've raised consciousness, we've raised the media discussion. So if we're not attached to outcome, but we're in the process of these legal cases, I feel it's similar to a birth. We cannot be attached to the outcome of a birth, even a live baby. We're in the process. If we're so attached with fear to the outcome, we are constructing what we think is the safest, and that's turning out to be cesarean. In other countries, it's higher percentage than the Czech Republic. And you're actually fantastic at keeping it lower than most other countries.
You
But I
see,
wonder, yeah,
yeah,
what
it's
the whole,
everything is relative.
yeah,
So, thank you very much for
yes,
everything you brought up, and I hope we can continue some other time and look into the topic of, let's say, cesareans rising or obstetric violence. So,
thank you. It's always good to discuss things and great to hear your thoughts. Thank you, Lenka. I'll
thank
end it now.
you.
Cheers.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good day. Bye bye.